Today we're going to be talking about dead people. Hey, let's party up. Alright. Stop the music. I want to talk to you about the human experience. The human experience is made up of every single event in your entire life. Events that you will never, ever forget. By merely existing, you get the privilege of experiencing the beauty of nature, the accomplishments of man, and if you're lucky, the aspects of a specific culture you get to call your own. It can almost be overwhelming. So much going on, all so precious, and you just have to sit there and acknowledge the gift of your life.
Hey, I'm your sister's boyfriend. She just got mauled to death by 7 ostriches.
Dang. Most people wouldn't give a rat's ass if you died, and to the general public, that's expected and probably favored. I mean, me personally, I'd be weirded the fuck out if a bajillion people showed up to my memorial, but I don't know. But again, that's the general public, the layman, the ordinary people, and the people we're talking about today are not ordinary. They're freaks of nature. It's easy to say you shouldn't care when a celebrity passes because, well, you didn't know them. Why would you mourn somebody you didn't know? Well, I think it's fair to say that it's a bit silly to mourn celebrities, or in the case of today, artists, as much as people who were genuinely a part of your life. I still do feel like if something touches you, like a piece of art, you're allowed to feel a certain way when that artist passes. Easy example, I'm Mexican American. Dragon Ball is heavily influential in my culture, even before I watched and read it. I've been surrounded by DB all my life, it's had a huge impact on me, so yeah, when series creator Akira Toriyama died, I felt some type of way, and I know a lot of people felt similar. But there is another disparity when it comes to mourning dead celebrities. Most of them are terrible people. In a lot of ways, the internet has gotten much more apathetic. Some of it is masked under the guise of jokes, some of it is buried in 15 layers of irony, or some of it is coming from people who are brave enough to tell you straight up to your face the most offensive things imaginable. Which is kind of funny because people consider 2016 the edgy era. I think the edgiest era is right now. What was once considered edgy or taboo is now something that may be met with praise, and one of those things is the rise in apathy towards dead, controversial figures, we'll call them. Maybe I'm just misremembering things here, but when someone died on the old internet, they got to be remembered for the things that they did and did great. And there wasn't really any sort of pushback on that either. I can't remember anybody going, sorry, were you talking about Kobe? Don't look up what he did in Denver, Colorado. And yeah, people would joke about these people dying, but those jokes were more so for shock value. The humor rarely resided in pointing out the actions of these people, and was more about just how tasteless the jokes could get.
Walker was best known as the star of the popular car racing movie franchise The Fast and the Furious. Ironically, Walker himself was killed in a horrible car crash, which is kind of funny. If you're a horrible asshole. A man died.
Fast forward to 2025, I see 7 different King Von edits a day, all making fun of the fact that he was a serial killer
who bragged about killing people.
And as funny as I may find some of these videos and statements, I'm not going to deny that, there is a part of me that feels strange when I do. And I know that there's people who agree with me on that front, but I also know that there are a lot of people who don't. And so that's what we're going to tackle today. Why do we feel bad when we criticize dead people, even when they deserve it? And should you feel bad too?
You threw me off your board. What did you say?
Moha kapiro ame. It's a blessing. It means die with yours.
In the Bible, God suggests that criticizing dead people is bad, stating, "Damn fool, they are in the mud and shit." Is this actually in the Bible? I don't know. I don't read books unless they have pictures of the question in them.
Aha! As I suspected. 32 flavors.
But since the dawn of time, there has been a precedent set that making fun of the dead is simply a no-go. If someone is dead, they've earned their piece. Let them rest. this idea falls apart when you apply the harsh realities of the world to it. To put it bluntly, some people deserve to kill. I'm gonna keep it 100. There's a decently long list of people that, when they die, I'm gonna start hitting the quan out of impulse. This is the first segment in this video because I want to illustrate my main point right away. And that's that I get it. I feel like even if you're the most sympathetic, altruistic person in the world, you'd be lying out of your ass if you said you didn't understand why some people still get shit after they got. Oh, O.J. Simpson died. We should treat him with the same amount of respect and civility as everyone else. No, he killed 2 people and got away with it. No. To disavow these more black and white scenarios is to disrespect what the people around these situations might feel. If a person is celebrating a death of a sexual deviant because they themselves were a survivor of something like that, by telling them to be respectful, you are 110% demeaning what they've gone through. The criticism of dead figures is often tackled extremely black and white, so I wanted to get the most black and white thing out of the way first. I get it, I understand, and I feel that way sometimes. And while it feels a little weird to say that I have a great example of someone who deserved the heat after they passed, I do.
That's alright. Good night, girl. I'll see you tomorrow.
Twomad was an A-grade shit poster and streamer back in the day. He was popular for his Zoom bombings and ironic K-pop obsession, all of which had his signature forceful personality, and later in his career he became popular for overdosing on K while playing Overwatch. I do not think there was a single person on Earth who was sad about this. Before this happened, there were very clear signs. Twomad's Twitter account was a schizophrenic mess, and every YouTuber that was around him said as much. But it's hard to feel bad about this, because his schizo rants involved very disgusting things. Pedophilic comments, jokes about being a rapist, and it doesn't help that when all of this went down, multiple real allegations with very real weight to them began to surface. And the more shit that surfaced, the more guilty he seemed. I'm not gonna say anything absolutely so Twomad's ghost can't sue me, but there is a lot of evidence. A lot of evidence. A lot of evidence.
I am literally driving.
So suffice it to say, people were not exactly treating this man with respect and kindness when he flatlined. One thing that Twomad's death did, to me at least, was recontextualize his entire online presence. This loud, abrasive, overbearing character he presented wasn't a character. That's just who he was. I'm not trying to dramatize the situation or anything, but when you go back and watch his old videos, they have a much more sinister undertone. To be clear, there was always a level of uncomfortability when it came to Twomad's old videos, and let's face it, a lot of them profited off of the harassment of others, but I don't know, I guess now, as dramatic as it may seem, my brain kind of automatically assumes that any of these people, especially the newer the video got, could have been at the mercy of a drug-addicted lunatic. Watching a Twomad video now, it's a harrowing experience given his place in internet history, and I often think about all of the less than stellar things surrounding him. Not that I was a really big fan of him before or anything, but yeah, I can safely say that his videos are ruined for me. I just can't see him as the absurdist comic he was trying to be. Wait. We have to go over some other stuff before we can make all this make sense. So, let's go ahead and shift our perspective away from people who deserve it to people who don't. Kinda. Here's the thing about artists, big or small. They aren't perfect. Says literally every artist ever. I've made a ton of videos about the responsibilities that having an audience brings, so I'll brush upon it here. There is an impossible to meet expectation thrusted onto public figures by the internet that, when not met, the internet will begin to downplay that public figure for. You don't agree with me on a specific opinion? Well, I'm not a fan anymore. You choose not to speak on a certain topic, you're a centrist. Even if you somehow manage to avoid every single thing levied at you, all it takes is one jagoff to tweet, "Hey, so we all agree that this guy sucks now, right?" And just like that, there's a brand new suite of people who will hate you and everything you do. This stuff's lame, yeah, but it happens to everyone, right? And for the most part, it stops as long as there's nothing too crazy about you. For the most part. See, there are a lot of people on the internet with extreme control issues, and they will take a recently deceased person and drag their worst moments into the spotlight. I mean, I guess it's not the worst thing that could happen to a dead person. They could have one of those, like, 3 a.m. videos made on them.
One of my favorite things about Mac Miller is he dated Ariana Grande. This girl is like my dream girl.
Here's the question, though. Do these statements and criticisms just become invalid because someone is dead? Like, sure, it's not nice to point out a dead man's issues and flaws, but they don't disappear just because they're dead, right? Well, I mean, I guess they kind of do, but you get what I'm trying to say. If people's behavior was less than ideal, then I'm sure there's a way we could respectfully point that out. Here's the thing, though. We're dealing with a bunch of freaks that have control issues. And the way they handle these situations brings up a lot of issues. Such as, number 1, dead people can't fucking defend themselves. I'm gonna pull out Etika as an example here because there is a small faction of the internet who like to pin Etika as a lolicon. If you don't know what a lolicon is, I am so sorry. The main evidence for this is a tweet where Etika says that he beats it to anime babes regardless of their age.
Great video, but bro, where's that girl from? Now, that's a girl that I definitely have a couple of porn images saved on my computer. I've seen her a lot. There's a lot of good foot stuff with her too.
Okay, first off, this argument is fucking stupid. It takes the screenshots and video completely out of context. Liking characters that look like little girls is very different from finding an anime girl hot because she is designed to be attractive. Disregarding that, what the hell are you doing bringing this up right now? Etika isn't gonna come out and say, "No, I don't like lollies actually," because he can't. He's fucking dead. I've definitely pulled a worst case scenario. A lot of the people claiming this are just doing it to justify their own fucked up fetish, but I think it gets my point across regardless. Again, it's just disheartening to see people say things knowing that there is no way in hell they're gonna get any pushback that really means anything. Let's ignore that a little bit and look at when criticism of a dead person is quote unquote good, because there's a question that arises even when that happens. Number 2. Where was this energy before they died? When Ozzy Osbourne died, there was an influx of tweets talking about his racist remarks, most with no evidence. Now, on one hand, yes, this is a very justified thing to call out and criticize. However, a death that happened mere days after Ozzy's sort of highlights an issue with the way people went about it. Hulk Hogan. Small side tangent. I was in NYC when Ozzy Osbourne died, and my DJ uncle who lives out there was talking about how it was really sad to see him go. And then like a few days later, Hulk Hogan died, and he literally just went, "Oh, well, he wasn't one of my favorite people." And that was about as sweet as the responses to his death got. People put old Hulk Hogan through the fucking ringer. Because if you didn't know, this is a real thing he said about his daughter dating black men. I think you can deduce why people felt justified in their malice. And when you look at the people criticizing Hogan versus the people criticizing Ozzy, there is an imbalance. Hogan has been getting shit about his remarks for years, whereas I haven't heard anything about what Ozzy said right about up until the literal day he died. Hell, I still don't know, because nobody who ever complains about it shows what he fucking did. Why wasn't there anybody talking about this when he was alive? You know, when it mattered. Because surely if the comments were so horrible, you would have noticed them before he died. It's not like he's never been relevant. He was one of the biggest stars of all time. The whole thing just feels very self-serving. Again, control freaks power tripping over something that really doesn't matter. But that statement creates an issue within itself because I don't know what this fucking person's feeling. They could be power tripping. They could be legitimately concerned. They could be both. Both are opinions that two people could hold, and it's not right to write that off just because one person was an idiot when they were pointing it out. It's a really tricky situation to navigate feelings on. It would be a lot less tricky if I could see what he actually did, though. People have gotten too comfortable just saying things and not showing them, but that is a completely different can of worms for a completely different day. But even when those feelings are valid, number 3. does it even matter that much? Sometimes it does, we've gone over that, but every once in a while I see people just absolutely lose their minds over something, and it's like, bro, chill. People are obsessed with celebrities. They will idolize them, they will put them on pedestals, and when the egg ends up on their face because guess what, this all-perfect being you created in your head wasn't real, they'll bash the hell out of them just to seem as safe as possible. I see it over and over again, and it's become embarrassing at this point. And it's especially embarrassing to see it done to dead people. This is one of those cases where the parasociality does apply. Again, why do you care if somebody you didn't even know was an asshole? Like, I'm sorry, but if you had no real connection to these people and their actions were aimed at large groups that don't deserve it, why do you care? Oh, because you have empathy? Well, guess what I have? It's a gun. With that being said, I do kind of understand being disillusioned with someone who portrays themselves as something that they didn't really live up to in their real life. Being upset at an artist because, oh, they weren't nice to me is one thing. However, when someone builds themselves up to be an inspiring, kind-hearted figure who worked hard to get to the place that they're at, and it turns out they have a closet full of skeletons, yeah, let's just say it isn't too hard to see why some people wouldn't take very kindly to that. Hey, look, it's Stan.
Jack Kirby created those characters. I'm inclined to think that he created almost all of them by himself.
Everybody knows Stan Lee, the charismatic creator of hundreds of Marvel superheroes. To the general public, he is the greatest and most important figure in comics history. This is a title he does not deserve. For those who don't know, Stan Lee is not the creator of a majority of these characters. He is the co-creator of most of these characters, as in, he helped shape them into what we know today, but he did not do a majority of the work. Stan Lee's credit as creator for a lot of these characters goes directly to Joe Simon, Steve Ditko, and the main talking point for today, Jack Kirby. See, Stan created this method of writing comics called the Marvel method. Essentially, he would write an outline of what he wanted a story to be like, the artist would use that outline to draw the entire comic, and then Stan would get back the complete art and then write the rest of the story. This is a method of writing that indubitably puts a heavy amount of work on the artist, because they had to draw all of this shit out with only a basic idea of what the comic was supposed to be like. On top of this, Lee got Kirby and Simons fired from Marvel. He forced Kirby to give up the rights to the characters he created just so he could have his own artwork back. I am eating motherfucking bacon. And in general made millions off the backs of Kirby and others while they saw nothing. For case in point, he's kind of like Michael Keaton in The Founder. Stan would later give credit to his collaborators, but it didn't really mean anything. It was either too vague.
I couldn't write him fast enough, and these artists were so brilliant.
Well, it's really nice of you to say that, Stan. Can you do me a favor and tell me who the artists were? Or it wasn't reflective of the amount of work the artist actually put in. So all in all, yeah, this is 100% something that he should be criticized for. However, there is an increase in malice towards Stan Lee from people who are in the know, so to speak. And normally this wouldn't be an issue. After all, Stan died a hero that he really wasn't to the masses. But semi-recently, it's come out that in his elder years, Stan Lee was treated fucking horribly. He was forced by the team around him into doing a bunch of shit he didn't want to do, and had a bunch of people around him who weren't helping even though they knew about this. And even after the man died, every single party around him parades his corpse around so they can sell all sorts of stupid ass bullshit. And there are some people who will see this and just not give a fuck. I've seen a lot of people who believe that because of Stan's past actions, they're justified in mocking his elder abuse, and I gotta be honest, I don't think that that's the case. I think the reason they're comfortable with this is because they have the opposite view of Stan Lee than the general public. To the comic book obsessive, Stan Lee didn't do shit. It was Kirby and Ditko and all of the others who did everything while Lee sat in the corner of the room with his thumb up his ass and took all the credit. And when I first heard this, I thought it might be true. After all, Lee 100% did take a lot of credit that wasn't his. Who's to say he wasn't capable of taking all of the credit? But, in my opinion, this falls apart when you observe the actual work of Lee and, in this case, Kirby. In order to prove this, I took two books, the classic Fantastic Four, which was written by Lee under the Marvel method, and The New Gods, which is one of Kirby's most acclaimed solo works. And I read the first issue of each of them to see if I could find any differences, and lo and behold, I could. F4 is much more... how do I put this? Human. The interactions feel a lot more natural. The book still has a lot of vintage comic book camp, but there's much more expression behind the characters and their motives. New Gods isn't really like that. The characters are more so vessels to present the plot and cool ideas to the reader. Character dialogue is often just expository, describing what's going on or what something is, as opposed to how the characters feel or what the relationship to the things around them are. This is in no way a means of discrediting either of the two men, but rather showing you that these two books were written different. And you can point to a genre change, a character change, but the differences in the writing are fundamental. The differences, to me, are that one book had Stan Lee and one didn't. And normally I wouldn't want to rest a point on an opinion, but I know that there are a lot of people just like me who have said the exact same thing. A lot of people who've read far more than me have expressed that while Kirby's work is great, it isn't as smooth as his work with Lee. Oh, but Jack Kirby would constantly talk about how Lee never did anything. Okay, now, yes, there are a lot of interviews where Kirby will claim that Lee did not do anything. Interviews where he would go on about how he was the one who did all of the work and Stan Lee was a worthless chud playing with himself. And to be as nice as possible, you have to be brain dead to take these interviews at face value. In these interviews, Kirby has every single reason to make Lee look as bad as he possibly can. And yes, Lee is 100% a manipulator. But that doesn't mean that Kirby was telling the truth. Hey guys, it's Editor King XB here. I just wanted to kind of show you something that I found in relation to the whole Kirby lying debacle. I was rereading the statement that Jim Shooter, editor-in-chief of Marvel at the time, had made in relation to Kirby being sued for his original artwork. And as I was rereading the statement, something caught my eye where it said that Kirby was not only demanding that he would get his artwork back, but also that he would be given sole credit as the creator to all of the characters he co-created with Stan. So basically, have Stan's name ripped from the creations that they did together. But then here, it also says that Kirby insisted that he created Spider-Man. And that stuck out to me because Kirby never once worked on a Spider-Man book. That was the creation of Stan Lee and Steve Ditko. And as I began to dig a little deeper, I found out that this was a claim that Kirby would constantly make, saying that he created Spider-Man and then handed the concept off to Steve Ditko, who shaped it into what we know today. But in an interview he did in 1971 on the Tim Skelly Show, Kirby not only claimed that he never worked with Steve Ditko, but that Steve Ditko himself created Spider-Man. And at no point in this interview does he claim that he had anything to do with the creation of Spider-Man. And before you nerds in the comments get mad at me, yes, Kirby did make a Spider-Man, like a Spider-Man concept, but the only place I've seen where Kirby acknowledges this creation was, again, the secondhand account from Jim Shooter, where he acknowledges that while yes, he did make a Spider-Man concept, it was largely thrown out for Lee and Ditko's own original creation. And this is not me trying to bash Kirby for, you know, not getting down the exact timeline of a near 5-decade-long dispute. But again, what I'm trying to show you here is that just because Lee is untrustworthy, it doesn't mean that Kirby is. Nobody was a fly on the wall when Kirby and Lee were creating these stories, so all we have are heavily biased anecdotes and the art that they created. And what seems to be the most plausible from all of that is that, yes, Lee did help shape these iconic characters. And with all that being said, I'm still not very fond on Stan Lee, especially after doing all of this research. Because what Lee did to Kirby and to Ditko and all of the others runs so much deeper than money and credit, which are huge deals, don't get me wrong, but I feel like what he did to them in the long run is worse than that. I was in a room with a bunch of people who I didn't know when I was writing this segment of the video, and so I asked around 2 questions to each person. The first being, who is Stan Lee? To which the entire room said, oh yeah, the Marvel guy, or the Spider-Man guy. And then the second question I asked them was, who is Jack Kirby? To which the entire room responded, I don't know. Earlier this year, I really wanted to kill myself. We're talking about a lot of fun topics today, I'm aware. I'm going to read directly off this script. I'm lazy, I know. A lot of people talk about, you know, believing nobody loves you and how silly it is. But people don't talk nearly as often about feeling like you're unworthy of loving. When I was really, really looking for a way out, I started to develop this idea in my head that I was an objectively bad person. Because I had to be. If I was going to take myself off the face of the earth forever, it had to be for a good reason. So I started to convince myself that I was a bad person and make that into an argument that would be impenetrable to the people around me. You know, one thing I can do myself, even at my lowest, is I wasn't nearly stupid enough to think that that would work. I mean, after all, the only reason that you would need to convince somebody that you are unworthy of loving and deserve to die is if you knew they wouldn't take it well. As if I killed myself turned into when I killed myself, I began to think about what I would die in the eyes of others as. I began to think about what my legacy would be. To some, I'd figured I'd die King Exby. To some, a good friend. To some, an aggravating classmate or coworker. Or maybe I'd die the way I saw myself. A pathetic worm who buried his pain in 7 layers of irony and knew that when he took his own life, it'd be because he'd rather end it all than admit the mess he made was genuinely fixable. It was this obsession with legacy that eventually led to the creation of the video that you're watching right now. Because even though I got much better, as evident by the fact that, well, I'm right here, I've thought a lot about the people who didn't. All this is to say, my experiences this year have given me a newfound sympathy towards a lot of groups of people. And we are going to close with a group of people who many of you will rightfully claim don't deserve any sympathy. But we discussed people who definitely deserve this shit. We discussed people who don't really deserve this shit. We discussed people who kinda deserve this shit. And now we're ending on a curveball. People who have more than definitely done enough to deserve this shit, while at the same time holding a pretty decent amount of respect. I can understand how that description may seem a bit confusing, so I'm just gonna pull up my first example and I think you'll get it. John Lennon. The Beatles will probably be the most influential thing from the last century, the century before, and the century to come, and Lennon was lauded as a result. He was a philanthropist, an arbiter of peace, one of the most musically talented of the lot, and he had the best walk. But if you look into him past that, you'll find that he's also done a lot of other stuff, such as beat his wife, neglect and abuse his firstborn, make a song called This, and fell in love with his mom.
I was just remembering the time when I had my hand on my mother's when I was about 14. It was the day off school.
The man has a long rap sheet of issues, all of which are very, very well documented, nearly all of which he admits to himself.
All that, I used to be cruel to my woman and beat her. That's me, because I used to be cruel to my woman and physically. Any woman. You know, I was a hitter. I couldn't express myself, and I fought men, I hit women, I was violent. That's why I'm always on about peace. You see, it's the most violent people that go for love and peace. And I sincerely believe in love and peace.
Let me get this out of the way. Criticism, mocking, all of it justified. We are not talking about some kind of saint here. But the more you look into it, the more you realize that he wasn't just doing all of this horrible shit and then moving past it. Lennon's actions seem to be the result of deep-seated trauma and substance abuse, and near the end of his life, it seemed like he was really trying hard to be a better man before he got shot and killed. Nearly every person he ever harmed forgave him before or after he died. And it brings up something interesting. Going back to the parasociality thing from earlier, we don't really know John Lennon. At least most of us. I don't know, maybe Ringo's watching this. Nobody was directly affected by John's actions. So it's not up to me, not up to you, to apologize on behalf of the people that he abused. But now that everyone who was ever at his mercy forgives him, where does that put you and me, the everyman? Why do we care? We didn't know John. Well, yeah. But John made art. John Lennon said and did and stood for things that appealed to the everyman, that were for the everyman. And in spite of everyone he ever harmed apologizing for the things he did, he still did those things. Things that 100% go against what he stood for. So, who should he be remembered as? The man who he was, or the man who he was trying to be? Lennon has undeniably spoken to generations, which is one of the reasons that he's the headliner for this section. It's easier to find everything about him, and it's easier to understand what he meant to people. Artists, more specifically dead musicians, are the most common in this category because music is a really great way to get across specific emotions or specific events in your life while not necessarily needing to let people know everything about you. Like I said earlier, I don't really want to watch another Twomad video because it makes me think of things. But I Wonder by Kanye is a beautiful song that has legitimately pushed me to continue being the greatest I can be, even through immensely tough times. And even though Ye has been an unredeemably huge piece of shit for quite some time, that song has never left my rotation. Because to me, that song speaks to a primal emotion that lets me look past every stupid thing Kanye has ever said and just lets me feel the way it intends for me to feel. And I bet that you, yes you, Marcus, have at least one song like this in your life. So you can't really fault people for that. But there is a limit. If someone gets past the aux and they start playing Vultures Kanye, I'm kicking them out of my car. People talk a lot about separating the art from the artist, and that's fine when people aren't injecting their shitty beliefs into the art. And I'm aware this is all very general speak, and it's focused on someone who's not even fucking dead yet, but what I'm trying to get at here is that when someone or something made by someone is important to you, it can be really hard to let it go or accept something difficult about it. But sometimes you just have to do it. Most people, when they die, are not John Lennon. They make no real effort to fix themselves. They get no redemption. They just go. And with that, I have one more subject on the list. The one who inspired me to make this video. Alright, you're gonna watch me hit this. I'm not trying to ruin your fun. You're just a little bit late. I guess you're already done. There's this feeling I can't shake, cause I'm too dumb. Never doing the right thing, so I'm so stuck. If you see me. Wi-Fi Skeleton was an artist who made a lot of songs that were mainly themed around depression and suicidal thoughts. He got really popular on TikTok, and at about the peak of his popularity on May 5th, 2025, he overdosed. And from what his lyrics, his friends, and what he said hours before, he very well may have done this intentionally. He also groomed and harassed multiple women.
I was a little uncomfortable. I was more grounded, I guess. I was just kind of like, ew. I think I told her not to do that one time or something. But this particular day, I don't know. I'd seen it for like the billionth time, and then I acted on it. And I can't ever undo that, man. I had no reason to act on it. I had no reason to have her added. I had no reason to say hello to her. There wasn't anything specific about her or something. It wasn't because of her age or anything, or because of how she looked or anything. It's just somebody showed me that they really wanted to do with me, and I was like, wow, somebody wants to do with me.
I want to get this out of the way first because this is not something that is up for debate. The audio clip I just played was of Wi-Fi Skeleton admitting to sexually messaging a minor. And there is a lot more to this story. Too much for this video. I recommend Stormy Skeleton's video on the topic. It goes into everything with receipts. There isn't a lot of wiggle room for Cyrus. He did awful shit, he tried his best to lie about it, and for a time, he was able to get away with it. See, Wi-Fi Skeleton was exposed when he was a commentary YouTuber called Cyrus, so he was able to shed the Cyrus personality once Wi-Fi Skeleton got popular. As a result, there are a lot of people who know Wi-Fi Skeleton but don't know that he was Cyrus. But at some point, the trickle from that began to reach the Wi-Fi Skeleton audience, and a lot of them just didn't accept it. It may be because Cyrus made this incognito video where he defended himself, but I gotta say, if this video convinced anybody, then the world is full of even stupider people than I initially thought.
2, guys don't really screenshot sexual conversations. For guys out there, have you ever had a girlfriend or a really clingy girl that you're talking to screenshot any of your texts or photos you sent because, oh, they think it's cute, or they think that it's hot, or they never show anybody? Guys don't really do that shit back.
Yeah, this is for men. This is a men's group. This is for the boys. Get out of here, Toots! Get out of here, woman loser!
But about a month after his death, something bizarre happened. Wi-Fi Skeleton's "Nope, You're Too Late, I Already Died" sort of became the unofficial anthem of Men's Mental Health Month. But even further than that, there was a push to make Wi-Fi Skeleton the face of victims of false allegations. No! "You're Too Late, I Already Died" becoming a Men's Mental Health Month anthem. Sure, I don't think it's a great idea, but given the context and the lyrics of the song, I can see the vision there. But you cannot make this man the face of false allegation victims because his allegations were not false. It's unbelievably awful to do that to his victims. It hurts both the falsely accused and the actual accusers, and for what? So you can listen to his music with a clear conscience? If his music speaks to you, fine. A lot of his music is about incredibly heavy shit that people can relate to. But don't let him become something he's not because you like his music. I'm sorry, but objectively, he was a terrible person. And coming to that conclusion made me come to my conclusion on the entirety of the imperfect dead. No matter what you say, what you do, how you present yourself to your audience, there is nothing you can do when your legacy is being written. Because it's being written by somebody else. someone who doesn't really care what you want to be. No matter how long people rally for you, rally against you, they'll soon have to face what's been in front of them this entire time. Because in spite of anything that you may do, the only thing that you're left with when you're gone is the truth. That's all for this video. Like and subscribe or I'll kill you and then mock you afterward. I'm really sorry for the lack of uploads. I've been dealing with mental health, as you can probably tell from the nature of this video, as well as I had like a video planned and then I got about halfway through the massive script and I just scrapped it because it just wasn't working out. But I'm back in it. I'm feeling more pumped than I ever have before. Gotten into shape, gotten myself a little bit more mentally prepared for things. Thank you so much for sticking around, even in spite of, you know, all of the just humongous gaps. I hope to make it worth your while. Please go out, do something for your community today, man. Do literally anything. Just, you know, the world's a fucked up place, especially as of right now. We're living through one of the most rough times I think I've ever seen. And if you can go outside and just make one person's day, go ahead and do that. Like, I don't know. I know I'm just a fucking idiot, but like, if you can take away something from this video, just go do something nice. Go talk to the guy at the gas station. Go fucking ask a girl out. Go become the mayor and fuck up the city's economy. It's something like that. I have a channel with my friends Isaiah and the Ancestors and Parmesan called DisasterCast, where we do all sorts of wacky shit, so be sure to follow up that. I have a second channel called XB's Dumpster that I will use a lot more. I have a Twitter at KingXB. I've been trying to use it less because, what do you know, it makes me feel better. I have memberships, $5. You get access to a Discord server. I'm going to start making members only content on there. That's all I got for today. Thank you so much for sticking around, and as always, no future for the ones stuck in they mind.
I started a funny story which I'd heard that day, and I'd gone on for a while when it dawned on me that I'd forgotten how it ended. I continued with the story. I hoped that somehow I'd find an ending, somehow be able to invent one. And the people were all looking very eagerly, waiting for the finish, because they knew that although the story was very boring, it must be boring for a purpose. Obviously it was boring because the end was going to be so tremendously amusing. They all looked at me eagerly, and I continued and continued, and I thought, how in heaven's name can I get out of this thing?